Imagine a city, not just built of stone, but a powerhouse, a beacon of civilization lost deep in the emerald jungle. Picture a metropolis teeming with tens of thousands of people, its plazas alive with rituals, its pyramids soaring above the canopy, reaching for the gods themselves. This was Tikal. For over 1,000 years, it dominated the Maya world, a true superpower of Mesoamerica. And then, silence. An entire civilization, gone. Not in some sudden disaster, but a slow, creeping desertion, leaving behind massive stone ghosts to be swallowed by the relentless jungle. How could a city that mastered engineering, astronomy, and warfare just vanish? This isn't just the story of a lost city. It's an investigation into one of archaeology's most profound and unsettling mysteries. What really happened to Tikal? Welcome. We're journeying back in time, deep into the Guatemalan rainforest, to the sprawling, enigmatic ruins of Tikal. Today, we're not just looking at old stones. We're trying to piece together a complex puzzle. The meteoric rise and the haunting disappearance of a city that once held sway over a vast kingdom. Tikal wasn't just a collection of impressive buildings. It was the vibrant heart of a sophisticated civilization, a testament to human drive and ambition. Its ancient name, possibly Yaxmutal, still whispers of its former glory. At its peak, during the classic period of Maya civilization, roughly 250 to 900 AD, Tikal was a massive urban center. Think about it, a city covering an estimated 16 square kilometers, that's about 6.2 square miles, packed with around 3,000 stone structures in its core. Some estimates put its population as high as 50,000 to 100,000 people, if you include the surrounding areas. This wasn't just a large town, it was one of the most populous and powerful cities in all of the pre-Columbian Americas. Towering temple pyramids, like the famous Temple 4, shot up over 70 meters or 230 feet above the forest floor, a clear statement of divine connection and royal power. Elaborate palaces housed a sophisticated nobility, and vast plazas were the stages for grand ceremonies and public life. Intricate stone causeways, known as sakbiab, were like arteries connecting different parts of this bustling metropolis, making trade, communication, and the movement of its people possible. But underneath all that grandeur, a darker question always lingered, a question that echoes even louder today as we walk its silent plazas. Why was it all abandoned? By the 10th century, Tikal, once a thriving hub, was largely deserted. Its magnificent structures slowly surrendered to the encroaching jungle. The mystery of its decline has captivated explorers, archaeologists, and historians for generations. Was it a single catastrophe, or a slow, agonizing decline? The answers are as complex and layered as the city itself. To understand its fall, we first need to grasp its incredible rise. These weren't the grand ceremonial centers we see the ruins of today, but communities of early farmers. What drew them here? Perhaps the fertile land, even though there weren't obvious water sources like rivers or lakes nearby. The first real signs of monumental ambition appeared around 300 BCE, with early structures built on what would later become the famous North Acropolis. This was a big shift, a move from simple village life to something more complex, the very beginnings of a city. It was during this formative time that the Maya began to embrace the idea of monarchy, with kings leading their growing communities. The dynasty at Tikal is thought to be one of the oldest in the Maya lowlands, with legends tracing its founding to a figure named Yaxeb-Suk, possibly in the 1st century AD. This long line of rulers would become a cornerstone of Tikal's lasting power. One of the most remarkable things about Tikal's early development was how its people tackled environmental challenges. As I mentioned, the region didn't have easily accessible surface water. So, how did a city destined for greatness survive, let alone thrive? The answer lies in some pretty sophisticated water management. The early Maya of Tikal were brilliant hydraulic engineers. They built a series of reservoirs, and some of their vast, paved plazas were even designed to channel precious rainwater into these storage systems. They constructed dams and canals, creating an intricate network to collect and store rainwater, essential for drinking and for watering their crops during the long, dry seasons common in this region. This mastery over their environment was crucial. It allowed the population to grow and the settlement to expand, laying the groundwork for the metropolis to come. Just think about the foresight and communal effort that required. In a landscape where water was a seasonal gift, they found a way to capture and hold it, turning a potential weakness into a managed strength. This early engineering skill wasn't just about survival, it was about ambition. It let Tikal support more people, specialize its labor, and invest in the massive architecture that would define it. These early foundations, both societal and structural, were the seeds from which a superpower would bloom, a city that would eventually dominate huge parts of the Maya world. But this was just the beginning. Forces from outside the Maya heartland were about to play a crucial role in Tikal's rise. Tikal's journey from a major regional center to a Mesoamerican superpower really kicked off during the early Classic period. From about 250 to 600 AD, this era saw an explosion in urban development, massive construction projects, and the cementing of Tikal's political and economic power. Its strategic location was a huge advantage, allowing it to control vital trade routes that crisscrossed Mesoamerica. Goods like obsidian, that volcanic glass essential for tools and weapons, precious jade, salt, cacao, and exotic feathers all flowed through Tikal, filling its coffers and spreading its influence. But a truly game-changing event, one that would launch Tikal to new heights of power, happened in the year 378 AD. This date is carved into the hieroglyphic record as a moment of profound change. A mysterious figure named Siaj Ka'ak, or Born of Fire, arrived at Tikal. Evidence suggests Siaj Ka'ak was an envoy, maybe even a general, from Teotihuacan, the colossal and influential city-state far to the west, in the highlands of central Mexico. The inscriptions tell a dramatic story. On the very day Siaj Ka'ak arrived, Tikal's then ruler, Choctaw Ichak III, also known as Great Jaguar Paw, died. The implication? A forceful intervention, a regime change orchestrated by Teotihuacan. A year later, in 379 AD, Siaj Ka'ak oversaw the installation of a new king at Tikal, Yaxnun Ayin I. Interestingly, Yaxnun Ayin I's father is identified as Spear Thrower Owl, a name strongly linked with the rulership of Teotihuacan itself, or possibly Caminaljuyu, another major center with Teotihuacan connections. This event didn't crush Tikal. Instead, it ushered in a new dynasty with powerful ties to the most dominant city in Mesoamerica at the time. This Teotihuacan connection acted like a rocket booster. The new rulers, backed by the prestige and possibly the military might of Teotihuacan, solidified Tikal's power over the central Maya lowlands. The influence of Teotihuacan became visible in Tikal's art and architecture. New styles of pottery, weaponry, and even architectural designs reminiscent of Teotihuacan started appearing at Tikal, a clear sign of deep cultural and political exchange. Recent archaeological finds, like a painted altar discovered near Tikal's center, further highlight this Teotihuacan presence. This altar, dating to around the late 4th century, shows Teotihuacan artistic styles and was found in a complex that looks like Teotihuacan residential structures. This suggests that elites from Teotihuacan may have lived in Tikal, perhaps even overseeing things after the 378 AD event. Some theories even propose that a small replica of Teotihuacan's citadel existed near Tikal, maybe as an enclave for these powerful foreigners or as a symbol of their influence. This alliance, or perhaps it was more of a subjugation, ultimately fueled Tikal's expansion. The city became a dominant force. Its rulers commissioned magnificent stelae, those carved stone monuments, to broadcast their achievements and legitimize their reigns. Tikal began to project its power outwards, influencing smaller city-states and creating a network of alliances and vassals that stretched across the Maya region. The city was no longer just playing in the Maya world. It was becoming its epicenter, a powerhouse forged in local ingenuity and foreign influence, ready to enter its golden age. Imagine standing in the Great Plaza of Tikal during its peak, sometime between 600 and 800 AD. This was the heart of the classic period, Tikal's undisputed golden age. The air buzzes with activity. Traders from distant lands haggle over goods in bustling marketplaces. Priests in elaborate outfits ascend the steep stairways of towering pyramids, performing rituals to appease the gods and ensure the city's prosperity. Scribes meticulously record dynastic histories and astronomical observations in complex hieroglyphs. Nobles adorned with jade and quetzal feathers move through the grand palaces that flank the plaza. This was Tikal at its most magnificent, a city of wonders that dominated the Maya world. During this era, Tikal wasn't just large, it was colossal. Its population swelled, with estimates suggesting between 45,000 and 62,000 people living within its core and immediate surroundings, though some scholars think it could be closer to 100,000 or more if you consider its entire sphere of influence. This made it one of the largest pre-industrial cities anywhere in the Americas. The urban core itself expanded to cover an impressive area, with thousands of stone structures, including at least 5 major pyramidal temples and 3 vast acropolis complexes that served as palaces and administrative centers. Temple 4, the Temple of the Two-Headed Serpent, reached an astounding height of over 70 meters, 230 feet, a testament to the skill of Maya architects and the power of rulers like Yikan Chankawil for whom it was built. Temple 1, the Temple of the Great Jaguar, famously served as the tomb for another great Tikal ruler, Jasaw Chankawil. He reigned from 682 to 734 AD, and was key in reasserting Tikal's dominance after a challenging period. The achievements of Tikal during its golden age weren't limited to just building big. This was a time of extraordinary intellectual and artistic flourishing. Maya art, in the form of intricate stone carvings, painted ceramics, and vivid murals, reached new levels of sophistication. The wooden lintels from Tikal's temples, carved with scenes of rulers, gods, and historical events, are masterpieces of Maya artistry, giving us invaluable insights into their beliefs and history. Their understanding of mathematics and astronomy was profound. Tikal's astronomers tracked the movements of celestial bodies, developing a complex calendrical system that was, in some ways, more accurate than contemporary European calendars. They used a sophisticated vigesimal, base 20 number system that included the concept of zero, a revolutionary idea at the time. Hieroglyphic writing was everywhere, adorning stelae, altars, and lintels, recording the deeds of kings, dynastic successions, alliances, and important rituals. These inscriptions are our primary window into the political and social world of Tikal. Urban planning was also highly advanced. Beyond the grand ceremonial core, residential areas spread out, connected by those raised causeways or sak-biab. The ingenious water management systems developed in earlier times were expanded and maintained, crucial for sustaining such a large population in an environment without permanent rivers or lakes. Reservoirs were meticulously engineered to collect and store the seasonal rains, a lifeline for the city. Tikal's influence stretched far beyond its physical boundaries. It was a major political player, engaging in diplomacy, forming alliances, and, when necessary, waging war to maintain its top-dog status. Its power reached across the Maya lowlands, from the Yucatan Peninsula in the north to western Honduras. This was Tikal as a true superpower, a beacon of Maya civilization, seemingly unshakable in its grandeur and authority. Yet even at the height of its glory, the seeds of conflict and eventual decline were being sown within the complex political landscape of the Maya world. The classic Maya world wasn't a single unified empire. Think of it more like ancient Greece or Renaissance Italy, a complex patchwork of independent city-states. These city-states, each with its own divine king or kuhulajau, were tied together by a shared culture and religion, but they also frequently tangled in intricate webs of alliances, rivalries, and outright warfare. Tikal, as a dominant power, was right in the middle of this volatile political scene. Warfare was a constant feature of Maya society. It wasn't always about conquering territory in the way we think of it today, though that did happen. Often, conflicts were aimed at capturing high-status individuals for sacrifice, demanding tribute, disrupting trade routes, or simply asserting dominance over rivals. The inscriptions on Tikal's monuments are filled with accounts of military campaigns, victories, and the subjugation of lesser lords. Kings like Jasau-chan Kawilasharam weren't just celebrated for their building projects, but for their military skill. Tikal's main and most enduring rival was the powerful city-state of Calakmul, located to the north in what is now Campeche, Mexico. For centuries, Tikal and Calakmul were locked in a struggle for supremacy, a kind of Mesoamerican Cold War that occasionally erupted into major conflicts. Each superpower built its own block of allied city-states, creating a bipolar political landscape that defined much of the classic Maya period. This rivalry wasn't just about military might. It was a battle for influence, for control of trade routes, and for the loyalty of smaller kingdoms. One of the most significant blows to Tikal's power came in 562 AD. An alliance, likely led by Karakol, a city-state to the south, possibly allied with Calakmul at the time, defeated Tikal in a major war. This event, known as the Tikal hiatus, marked a period of diminished influence. For over a century, Tikal pretty much stopped building major monuments and erecting stelae. Calakmul and Karakol rose to prominence during this time, overshadowing Tikal's power in the southern lowlands. But Tikal was nothing if not resilient. The city eventually recovered. Under the dynamic leadership of rulers like Jasau-chan Kawilhai in the late 7th and early 8th centuries, it struck back. In 695 AD, Tikal won a decisive victory over Calakmul, an event proudly proclaimed on its monuments. This victory didn't end the rivalry entirely, but it did mark a resurgence of Tikal's power and prestige, ushering in another era of prosperity and monumental construction, including the building of temples Wunan the Ten in the Great Plaza. The political maneuvering was relentless. Alliances shifted like sand. Vassal states might rebel or be lured away by rivals. Marriage alliances were common tools of diplomacy, forging bonds between ruling families. For example, Tikal sponsored the founding of Quirigua in the southeastern Maya region, possibly to extend its influence, though Quirigua later allied with Calakmul and defeated its former overlord, Copan, a Tikal ally. This intricate dance of power, diplomacy, and war characterized the Maya political scene. It was a system that allowed for great cultural exchange and development, but also carried inherent instability. The constant pressure of warfare, the resources diverted to military campaigns, and the potential for internal strife from these power struggles would all become contributing factors to the eventual, and still debated, unraveling of this great civilization. The cracks were beginning to appear, not just from external pressures, but from within the very fabric of Maya society and its relationship with the environment that sustained it. Even as Tikal was enjoying its late classic comeback, reclaiming its spot as a dominant force after beating Calakmul, subtle but persistent pressures were building. All that monumental construction, the booming population, the intricate political games, it all put immense strain on the city's resources and its societal structure. The whispers of decline, almost unnoticeable at first, started to grow louder towards the end of the 8th and into the 9th century AD. One of the biggest challenges was environmental. Tikal, and Maya civilization in general, was built in a tropical rainforest. While lush, this ecosystem has surprisingly thin topsoil and is sensitive to disruption. To feed its massive population, again, tens of thousands at its peak, Tikal's inhabitants practiced intensive agriculture. This meant clearing large areas of forest for their main crops, maize, beans, and squash. while the Maya were skilled farmers, using techniques like terracing and slash-and-burn agriculture, also called swidden. The sheer scale of deforestation around a major center like Tikal would have had serious consequences. Studies of pollen data and soil analysis from the Tikal region suggest that by the late Classic period, a huge chunk of the surrounding forest had been cleared. Research from the University of Cincinnati indicates that perhaps 60% of the forest was gone. This deforestation had a domino effect. It led to soil erosion, washing away precious nutrients needed for farming. It also, critically, likely impacted the local climate. Rainforests play a vital role in generating humidity and rainfall. As the tree cover shrank, local rainfall patterns may have been disrupted, making the already pronounced seasonal droughts even worse. To make matters worse, the population of Tikal and its surrounding areas had hit its peak. More people meant more demand for food, water, and building materials, further stressing the environment. Those sophisticated water management systems, with their reservoirs and canals, were Tikal's lifeline. But these systems depended entirely on rainfall. If the rains failed or became less predictable, the city faced a critical water crisis. The very ingenuity that allowed Tikal to thrive, its ability to collect and store rainwater, also made it incredibly vulnerable to long droughts. And there's emerging evidence that these vital water sources might have become compromised. Recent research published in scientific reports and highlighted by institutions like the University of Cincinnati and the National Science Foundation points to a truly nasty problem: contamination of Tikal as central reservoirs. Analysis of sediment layers from reservoirs near the temple and palace areas dating to the 8th and 9th centuries revealed high levels of mercury and phosphates, as well as the DNA of toxic cyanobacteria, that's blue-green algae. Where did this mercury come from? Researchers think it was from cinnabar, a mercury sulfide mineral. The Maya used cinnabar as a vibrant red pigment for decorating buildings, pottery, and possibly in rituals. Over time, rainwater could have leached this mercury from painted surfaces and carried it into the reservoirs. During droughts, as water levels in the reservoirs dropped, these contaminants would have become more concentrated, making the water potentially toxic. Imagine the ruling elite, who likely got their drinking water from these central reservoirs, unknowingly ingesting mercury-laced water and food every day. The presence of toxin-producing algae, which can thrive in nutrient-rich, stagnant water, would have further fouled the water supply, producing toxins that even boiling wouldn't remove. These mounting environmental stresses, deforestation, soil degradation, potential local climate change, and critically, contaminated and dwindling water supplies, were all happening against a backdrop of ongoing political tensions and widespread warfare. The resources needed to maintain a large army, to build ever grander monuments to Project Power, and to engage in costly rituals were immense. As resources became scarcer and the environment less forgiving, the social fabric of Tikal would have been stretched to its breaking point. The first cracks were no longer just whispers. They were becoming visible fissures in the foundation of this Maya superpower. The stage was being set for a much more dramatic unraveling. The final centuries of Tikal's occupation, from roughly 800 AD onwards, paint a grim picture of a city in crisis. Monument construction slowed dramatically and then stopped altogether. The last dated stela at Tikal, those stone monuments marking big events or reigns, bears the date 869 AD, though some sources push that to 889 AD. After this, the historical record, so rich for centuries, falls eerily silent. Population levels started a steep nosedive. Elite palaces show signs of being burned. By around 900 or 950 AD, the once mighty city of Tikal was largely abandoned. Its plazas were empty, its temples beginning their slow surrender to the jungle. But why? What combination of factors could bring such a resilient and powerful civilization to its knees? This is the central question that has driven archaeologists and researchers for decades, turning Tikal into one of the world's most intriguing historical crime scenes. There's no single smoking gun, no simple answer. Instead, a complex web of interconnected theories has emerged, each shedding light on a piece of the puzzle. This is where our investigation gets really tangled, exploring all the confusing and often conflicting clues. One of the most prominent theories revolves around severe and prolonged drought. We've already talked about how Tikal's reliance on rainwater made it vulnerable. Paleoclimatological studies, that is analyzing sediment cores from lakes and cave stalagmites in the Maya region, have provided compelling evidence for several intense droughts hitting during the 9th and 10th centuries. And guess what? That's precisely when Tikal was declining and being abandoned. These weren't just dry spells. Some are described as mega droughts, lasting for decades. For a city already struggling with a huge population and potentially degraded farmlands, such a sustained water crisis would have been catastrophic, leading to crop failures, famine, and a desperate scramble for dwindling resources. Then there's the specter of endemic warfare. The classic Maya political landscape was, as we've seen, full of conflict. While Tikal had reasserted its dominance after the earlier hiatus, the underlying system of rival city-states didn't go away. Some scholars argue that warfare actually intensified during the terminal classic period, roughly 800–900 AD. As resources became scarcer due to environmental pressures, competition between city-states for land, water, and trade routes might have escalated into more destructive and widespread conflicts. This constant state of war would have diverted people from farming, disrupted trade, and led to social instability. The burning of elite palaces at Tikal could be evidence of such conflicts, either internal revolts or attacks by enemies. Overpopulation and environmental degradation form another crucial piece of the collapse theory. Tikal, at its peak, supported a dense population that placed enormous demands on the local environment. As we've discussed, widespread deforestation for agriculture and fuel led to soil erosion and nutrient loss, reducing crop yields. The Maya were sophisticated farmers, but even their best efforts might not have been enough to sustain the population in the face of a degrading environment and changing climate. This overexploitation of resources created a very precarious situation, making the society highly vulnerable to any additional shocks, like drought or intensified warfare. Internal strife and the breakdown of social order are also considered major factors. The rulers of Tikal, the Kohul Ajau, were seen as divine intermediaries. They were responsible for maintaining cosmic order and ensuring the prosperity of their people through rituals and prayers to the gods. But as conditions worsened, as droughts persisted, crops failed, and enemies threatened, the people's faith in their rulers' ability to intercede with the gods may have just crumbled. If the kings could no longer guarantee rain and bountiful harvests, their legitimacy would shatter. This could have led to social unrest, uprisings against the elite, or simply a loss of cohesion as people abandoned the traditional centers of power in search of survival elsewhere. And remember that contaminated water? If it particularly affected the elite who relied on the central reservoirs, it could have physically weakened the leadership and symbolically signaled a failure of the rulers to protect their people. Finally, some researchers point to the disruption of long-distance trade networks. Tikal's wealth and power were partly built on its control of key trade routes. As the wider Maya world and indeed other Mesoamerican civilizations like Teotihuacan, which had declined centuries earlier, but whose collapse would have had long-term ripple effects, experienced their own crises, these vital economic arteries may have been severed or rerouted. The loss of access to essential goods and the wealth generated by trade could have further weakened Tikal's economy and the power of its elite. It's so important to understand that these factors likely weren't working in isolation. Instead, they probably interacted in a devastating feedback loop. Drought made food shortages caused by environmental degradation even worse. Famine and resource scarcity fueled social unrest and intensified warfare. A weakened elite struggled to maintain control, and the complex systems that had supported Tikal for centuries began to unravel. The investigation now moves to sifting through the physical evidence left behind, the silent testimonies in the ruins themselves. The ruins of Tikal are more than just breathtaking monuments. They're a vast archaeological laboratory, holding vital clues to the city's life and its eventual end. For decades, archaeologists have meticulously excavated its temples, palaces, homes, and even its trash heaps, searching for tangible evidence to support or challenge the various theories of collapse. And fascinatingly, recent technological advancements are revealing secrets hidden for centuries beneath the jungle canopy. One of the most revolutionary tools in recent years has been LIDAR, light detection and ranging. How cool is this? By flying aircraft over the dense rainforest and shooting billions of laser pulses towards the ground, researchers can create detailed 3D maps of the terrain, effectively seeing through the vegetation. LIDAR surveys around Tikal and other Maya sites have unveiled a staggering extent of settlement. We were talking previously unknown houses, defensive structures, agricultural terraces, canals, and causeways, far beyond the traditionally mapped urban cores. This has reinforced just how large and densely populated these areas were, lending serious weight to theories of overpopulation and extensive landscape modification. It also reveals the sheer scale of investment in agriculture and water management, underscoring their critical importance. The hieroglyphic inscriptions on stelae, altars, and lintels provide a direct, though often biased, historical record. The abrupt end of these inscriptions after the late 9th century is a powerful indicator of systemic collapse. The content of earlier inscriptions details alliances, wars, and royal lineages, allowing us to reconstruct the political landscape and identify periods of conflict or instability. For instance, the records of the Tikal-Calakmul Wars and the Tikal hiatus offer clear evidence of the impact of major conflicts. That recently discovered Teotihuacan-style altar, with its foreign artistic elements and burial practices, like a child buried in a seated position, rare for Tikal, but common in Teotihuacan, provides concrete evidence of the Teotihuacan intervention in the 4th century and their lasting presence. Associated finds like green obsidian dart points characteristic of central Mexico further back up this external influence. Archaeobotanical and zooarchaeological studies, fancy terms for the analysis of ancient plant remains and animal bones, paint a picture of Tikal's diet and its agricultural practices. Evidence of maize, beans, squash, and root crops confirms what they were eating. However, signs of nutritional stress in human skeletal remains from the terminal classic period can indicate food shortages. Isotopic analysis of bones can also reveal changes in diet over time, perhaps showing a shift to less desirable food sources as preferred ones became scarce. Studies of pollen cores, as we mentioned, track deforestation and the changing landscape, correlating with periods of population growth and decline. The reservoirs themselves have become a key area of investigation, especially for those water crisis theories. Sedimentary analysis from Tikal's reservoirs, like the palace and temple reservoirs, has yielded that alarming evidence of mercury and toxic algal contamination. Researchers painstakingly extracted core samples from these reservoirs, analyzing layers of accumulated sediment. The distinct chemical signatures within layers dated to the 9th century pinpoint when these pollutants became concentrated. Ruling out natural leaching from bedrock or widespread volcanic ash as the main mercury source, the evidence points towards the cinnabar pigment used by the Maya themselves as the culprit. This contamination of the primary water sources for the city's elite would have had severe health implications and perhaps even profound psychological impacts, as life-sustaining reservoirs turned into sources of sickness. Architectural analysis also provides clues. The shift from massive public works and elite constructions in the late Classic to a near-total stop in the terminal Classic is stark. The evidence of burned elite structures suggests violence or intentional destruction, whether from internal revolt or external attack. Changes in burial practices, settlement patterns, with people perhaps moving away from the urban core to more rural, defensible locations, and the quality of craft production, like pottery, can also indicate societal stress and a breakdown of established norms. Each piece of evidence, a carved stone, a pollen grain, a chemical trace in ancient mud, a forgotten structure revealed by laser light, adds a brushstroke to the complex picture of Tikal's final centuries. No single clue tells the whole story, But together, they allow us to move from broad theories to a more nuanced understanding of the cascade of events that led to the abandonment of this once great city. The evidence points not to a single cause, but to a convergence of multiple interlocking crises. So, what ultimately brought Tikal down? The truth, as we piece it together from all these clues in the ruins and the surrounding environment, is that there probably wasn't one single executioner. Tikal wasn't felled by one decisive blow. Instead, it looks like it succumbed to a perfect storm, a devastating convergence of multiple interconnected pressures that just overwhelmed its resilience and ultimately led to its abandonment. This is where we try to synthesize all the leading theories and evidence. Let's quickly revisit the key culprits in this tragedy. First, prolonged and severe drought. The paleoclimatological evidence for significant dry periods during the 9th and 10th centuries is pretty strong. For a city utterly dependent on seasonal rainfall for its water, this would have been a foundational crisis. Crop yields would have plummeted, leading to widespread food shortages and famine. Drinking water, even for the elite, would have become dangerously scarce. This environmental crisis was amplified by decades, if not centuries, of human-induced environmental degradation. The massive population of Tikal and its supporting region had cleared vast areas of forest for farming and fuel. This deforestation led to soil erosion, reduced the land's fertility, and likely made the droughts even worse by altering local rainfall patterns. In a sense, they were unwittingly contributing to their own environmental catastrophe. The very success of Tikal in sustaining a large population for centuries may have pushed its environment to a tipping point. Then came that insidious contamination of their water supply. The discovery of mercury and toxic algae in Tikal's central reservoirs adds a chilling new dimension to the drought scenario. As water levels dropped during dry periods, these pollutants would have become more concentrated. The ruling elite, reliant on these reservoirs, may have been slowly poisoned, suffering from health issues that could have seriously impaired their ability to lead. The general populace, if also exposed, or just witnessing the sickness of their leaders, would have faced a terrifying reality. The very water they needed for survival was making them ill. This wasn't just a practical problem, it was a symbolic crisis. Water is life. When the sacred reservoirs became sources of disease and death, it could have shattered the faith of the people in the cosmic order and the divine authority of their rulers. Against this backdrop of environmental collapse and a potential public health crisis, the existing socio-political system came under immense strain. Endemic warfare, a constant feature of the classic Maya world, likely got even worse as resources dwindled. City-states would have fought more desperately for fertile land, access to water, and control over diminishing trade goods. The evidence of burned palaces at Tikal could point to such conflicts, or to internal uprisings. As the divine kings failed to bring rain, ensure harvests, or protect their people from sickness and enemies, their legitimacy would have crumbled. The complex social contract between rulers and ruled, built on religious belief and the promise of prosperity, began to fray. And the breakdown of long-distance trade networks would have further crippled Tikal's economy, depriving the elite of wealth and prestige goods that underpinned their power. The entire Maya world in the southern lowlands was experiencing similar pressures, leading to a widespread systemic collapse, not just an isolated failure at Tikal. So try to imagine the situation in 9th century Tikal. The rains have failed yet again. The reservoirs are low and possibly toxic. The fields are barren. People are hungry, sick, and losing faith in their leaders. Rival cities are raiding for scarce resources. The intricate societal machine that had powered Tikal for a millennium began to sputter and seize. It wasn't a sudden apocalypse, but a gradual, agonizing decline. People likely began to leave not in a single mass exodus, but in waves seeking survival in smaller, more remote settlements, or perhaps migrating to areas with more stable water sources, like the northern Yucatan, where some Maya cities continued to flourish for a time. There was no single villain in Tikal's story. It was a tragedy born from a complex interplay of environmental vulnerability, human impact on that environment, climate change, societal pressures, and political instability. The very factors that contributed to Tikal's rise, a dense population, intensive agriculture, a powerful centralized elite, became vulnerabilities when faced with this perfect storm of crises. The system had become too rigid, too reliant on a specific set of environmental and political conditions. And when those conditions changed dramatically, it simply lacked the flexibility to adapt. The decision to abandon your home, a city that had been the center of your universe for generations, is never made lightly. For the last inhabitants of Tikal, it must have been a time of profound despair and uncertainty. The great plazas, once vibrant with ceremony and commerce, grew quiet. The monumental temples, once symbols of divine power and cosmic connection, now stood as silent witnesses to a dying world. Families would have packed what few possessions they could carry, turned their backs on the stone giants, and ventured out into an uncertain future, leaving Tikal to the encroaching wilderness. By the 10th century, the abandonment was largely complete. Small groups might have lingered for a while, perhaps scraping out a living in the shadows of the colossal ruins, but the grand societal structure that was Tikal had irrevocably collapsed. The jungle, always present at the city's edges, began its slow, relentless reclamation. Vines snaked over intricately carved stelae, tree roots fractured plaza floors, and the once manicured ceremonial spaces were gradually buried under a blanket of green. For nearly 1,000 years, Tikal remained a ghost city. Its existence was perhaps known only to small local communities, its grandeur largely forgotten by the outside world. The rediscovery of Tikal in the 19th century by explorers and archaeologists marked the beginning of a new chapter. Modesto Mendez and Ambrosio Tut, leading a Guatemalan expedition, officially reported on the site in 1848, though local people surely knew of its existence. Subsequent expeditions throughout the late 19th and early 20th centuries began to peel back the jungle veil, revealing the astonishing scale and complexity of what lay hidden. Major archaeological work, notably by the University of Pennsylvania starting in the 1950s, began the long, hard process of mapping, excavating, and restoring parts of the city, allowing Tikal to once again share its stories. Today, Tikal stands as a UNESCO World Heritage Site, a powerful testament to the achievements and the ultimate fragility of human civilization. The towering pyramids, the sprawling acropolises, and the silent plazas evoke a sense of awe and profound mystery. Walking through Tikal is like stepping into a dream, a world where the past feels intensely present. You can almost hear the echoes of ancient rituals, the murmur of voices in a forgotten tongue, the distant calls of howler monkeys reclaiming their ancient domain, just as they do now. The investigation into Tikal's rise and fall is far from over. Archaeologists continue to unearth new discoveries, and new technologies continue to provide fresh insights. Each find, whether it's a new inscription, an unexcavated structure revealed by LIDAR, or a microscopic trace of ancient pollen, adds another piece to this immense, intricate puzzle. The story of Tikal serves as a compelling and perhaps cautionary tale. It reminds us that even the most sophisticated and powerful societies are not immune to the consequences of environmental change, resource depletion, and internal conflict. It underscores the delicate balance between human ambition and the natural world that sustains us. Tikal's silence speaks volumes. It challenges us to understand the complex forces that shape civilizations and the reasons why even the greatest among them can ultimately vanish into the jungle, leaving behind only haunting questions and the enduring power of their stone sentinels. The mystery of Tikal continues to fascinate and spark debate. What theory about its abandonment do you find most compelling? Was it primarily drought, warfare, societal collapse, or that insidious poisoning of their water? Share your thoughts and theories in the comments below. We'd genuinely love to hear your perspective on this ancient enigma. And if you found this journey into the world of ancient Tikal captivating, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more deep dives into history's greatest mysteries and lost civilizations. Don't forget to hit that notification bell so you won't miss our next investigation. Tikal. Its name resonates with power, mystery, and the haunting beauty of a lost world. From its humble beginnings as a small village, it rose to become a Mesoamerican superpower. A city of breathtaking artistry, profound intellectual achievement, and formidable political might. For centuries, it was a vibrant heart of the Maya civilization, a testament to human ingenuity in mastering a challenging rainforest environment. Its rulers commanded armies, its astronomers mapped the heavens, and its artisans created works of enduring beauty. Yet, the story of Tikal is also a stark reminder of how fleeting power can be, of the complex and often fragile interplay between a civilization and its environment. The very factors that fueled its ascent, a dense population, intensive resource use, and a complex social hierarchy, ultimately contributed to its vulnerability. The convergence of environmental degradation, severe climate change in the form of prolonged droughts, the contamination of essential water sources, relentless warfare, and internal societal stresses created that perfect storm that even this mighty city could not weather. The abandonment of Tikal wasn't a single event, but a process, a slow fading of a once brilliant light, leaving behind a ghost city to be reclaimed by the jungle. But Tikal was never truly lost. Its monumental architecture, its intricate inscriptions, and the ongoing work of archaeologists ensure that its legacy endures. It continues to teach us about the remarkable achievements of the ancient Maya, but also about the universal challenges that societies face in maintaining sustainability and resilience in the face of change. The echoes of Tikal are a call to listen to the past, to understand the intricate connections that bind us to our world, and to reflect on the enduring mysteries that still lie hidden, waiting to be uncovered, in the depths of the jungle and in the annals of human history. The great city may have vanished, but its story and the questions it raises remain more relevant than ever.